What we are, because most of you probably don't know these stories or haven't heard them. Now, for most of you out there in the audience, I'm pretty sure you're from this area. There's a few of you that probably are not, but there's a two-syllable word I can ask any of y'all to say, and I'm going to identify who's not from here. If you say Colbert, you're not from here. You're from somewhere else. Now, it's all right here for us to say Sherfield or Tuscumbia, Mushoals, Leadon, Cherokee, but don't you dare say Colbert. That's against the rules here. Now, for most of you to realize that Colbert County here was not original. 200 years ago when this was formed, we're Franklin County. The county seat's in Russellville. So all the business people here had to go to Russellville to do their business. All the business started growing in this area, especially with the railroad and steamboats. A bunch of people got up here and said, we're not going to Russellville anymore. So they formed a special committee. The committee was a removal committee. When I say removal, the idea was to remove the county seat from Russellville to Tuscumbia. So you can imagine what that started. They became famous somewhat. So finally they were able to push a vote. The vote was Russellville, center of the county, or Tuscumbia, center of the county. Center of the county won. Both Russellville and Tuscumbia lost. Now here's another problem that came by. They were obligated to build the courthouse in the center of the county. But there's no town in the center of the county. There's not even a community in the center of the county. So what do? You go to the center of the county and you build a community. That community became Frankfort. When you go out Frankfort Road today, you're going to Frankfort, the county seat. It remained that way to the Civil War, and after the Civil War was over, the push to start the northern half into a county began. So in 1867, they formed a county out of the northern half of Franklin County. That didn't work. They quickly abolished that. Y'all not going to do that. 2 years later, they tried again. They were able to form a county out of the northern half of Franklin County. The county was to be named Colbert, after Levi and George Colbert. Now, the first time it was made up, it said Tuscumbia was the county seat. The second time they made it up, they didn't say where the county seat was. So they had to have a vote if somebody challenged. Cherokee challenged. So they had to have a vote between Tuscumbia and Cherokee. And Tuscumbia won hands down pretty much, became the county seat. Now when they formed, they were meeting down here in buildings downtown and trying to get started and build this courthouse. In 1882, they were able to purchase this lot from the Mansion family and start building the courthouse in its design. Now, when they got time to put the cornerstone in, they had a big party, and the newspaper talked about how many people came to the cornerstone ceremony. I don't think it was a ceremony, it was a cornerstone. They gave away free beer. So I think that's why everybody showed up. But they did have a big crowd. So they built the courthouse here as much as we see here. The courthouse is going to burn 20 years later. The fire is going to start right about above this door, right up in this area, right up in here is where the fire started. It's reported at 4 o'clock in the morning. And the bell was rung. Now, you have to understand some of our history again about a bell. Every church had a bell. There were 2 fire bells in Tuscumbia. One of them was on this corner right here, exactly which one I don't know, and one was down on Dixon and 6th. But when they rang the bell in a way to tell you what was going on. For instance, they did have what you called a death toll. If a church rang a bell, say if the Baptist church wanted to ring a bell a certain way, it was a death toll, everybody in town knew that someone in that church had died. The bells were the communication. So when they rang that fire bell, everybody in town knew there was a fire. So everybody got up and runs this way to try to do the fire. The fire is going strong. The fire department shows up. They do not have enough water pressure to throw water any higher than halfway up in those windows. So they have to order the water department to increase the water pressure. Sheffield runs and gets all their firemen ready to come to fight the fire. But nobody ever calls Sheffield to come, so Sheffield just sits there and lets the courthouse burn because they never informed to come. So the fire is going to burn down. It's completely gut this part of the courthouse down. Anything that didn't burn is going to burn. And at that time, by the way, the bell tower was, the bell tower was right here on the corner. It wasn't in the center of the building. But when it's over with, they decide to use the same building to make the new courthouse. So the square part you see here, going back, is the original courthouse. Just like the windows are designed, just the same thing. They use the same walls. They put the 4-column porticos on all 4 corners and changed the courthouse around. Now, when the courthouse was originally built, all Tuscumbia was proud to be home of the new courthouse. They passed a very special law just for that occasion. The law reads, for the city of Tuscumbia, it's against the law for any outhouse to be seen from the courthouse. That's actually on the books, by the way. I don't know how they moved them. I don't know whether somebody didn't do the ordinance. They went down and picked their outhouse out, moved it in the backyard or what. But it was against the law. That's one of those crazy laws we had. Now, the other section was 1948, and the other side was built in 1976. Now, how many of you have traveled down a road and it's called County Line Road? You know, yeah, okay. You ever notice it's not the county line? That's not the county line, by the way. So why is County Line Road called County Line Road? When Colbert County was formed, that was the county line. But some people around the Leeton area didn't like the idea that some of their land was in Colbert County and some of their land was in Lawrence County, and they were having to go to 2 courthouses to do their business, especially when Lawrence County was a 6-hour ride by horse that you would get there and the roads were bad. It was a 2-day travel. And when you came to Tuscumbia, you could catch the train and come on in, do your business, catch the train back. So they just got together and they tried to have the land taken from County Line Road over to Town Creek and put it in Colbert County. That wasn't going to fly for the people of Lawrence County. So the men got together and decided to form their own committee again. And the idea was to elect someone out of their group that would help change the county line. This they were able to do. So eventually they changed the county line to Town Creek and enclosed all those rich people's land all into Colbert County. So they went to one county seat, Tuscumbia. And that's how we got that expansion out to the west. Now another thing that started causing a little trouble in our area was the railroad. When Sheffield grew, railroad needs to connect Birmingham with Sheffield. But which way is the railroad going to go? A group wanted to go through Moulton. Another group wanted it to go through Russellville like it does today. There was a man by Captain Benjamin Little who was determined that the railroad was going to go through Russellville. So they decided to have a vote, or a bid, you might say, on which way it was going. So he put in his bid that he's guaranteeing that there's going to be a train in Franklin County by a certain date. Now, the other group bid from Moulton said, that's not possible. That's impossible to be done. Judge, we'll accept that bid on the agree that if he doesn't have that train in Franklin County by that date, we get the contract. The judge agreed. So they started building the train track toward Russellville. About 2 months before the contract was to be over with, they realized they were not going to get the train track built into Russellville in time, to Franklin County in time for this contract. So they go to Captain Little and he said, Captain Little, we're not going to make it. What do you want to do? He said, you double your efforts. I want that rail track built, or the roadbed at least built all the way into Franklin County by this date. So they doubled up their efforts. They got the rail bed built, but there was no track, no ties, nothing. About a week before the contract was over, Captain Little went out and got all the farmers in the area, got their mules, got their horses, got the ropes, tied it to a train back here, and drug the train into Franklin County. His contract read, the train had to be in Franklin County. He got before the judge, said, that train is in Franklin County. The judge looked at him and said, you're correct, that's what it says. You got a train in Franklin County. That is why the train goes through Russellville today. But the crazy thing about it was, where it happened, they named the town after him, Littleville. Anybody know who his partner was? You ever heard of Phil Campbell? So it sort of tells us a little story about how we get a few things going on around here. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to go over. It sort of tells our attitudes about the north side of that river. And it's going to be about our newspapers. Back about the turn of the century, town of Tuscumbia had its own newspaper. Florence had its own newspaper. they began a race to see who could raise the money for the first one to have the Confederate Memorial. Lauderdale County won. And you can imagine how the Florence newspaper poked fun at Colbert County because they couldn't raise their money. So when it came to time for the unveiling of their monument, they called the editor of the Tuscumbia newspaper, got him the front row seat right in front, in the middle, so he could be watching them as they unveiled their statue. Now, the newspaper here in Tuscumbia was weekly. So everybody waited, just what is he going to say after this? So they waited. Here it comes. His editorial read, if we can't have one that looks any better than that, we don't want one. And I like to thank you with that.